A very good day to you and welcome to Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Jael Kabira. We're still at our court corridors. The Supreme Court actually ruled that the Finance Bill of 2023 was constitutional. We're going to talk to Herman Manyora about that. Prof, the contradiction from the High Court to the Court of Appeal now to the Supreme Court. From the look of it, should the Supreme Court actually be having the final say? Because Kenyans were so happy with the reprieve, and then you come and you're told you'll still have this 16% tax on fuel, you still have these taxes that were put. Should Supreme Court first have this final say, or should we relook at the place of the Supreme Court when it comes to making these determinations?
Maybe, you know, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not taking the trouble time to find out what the Supreme Court should or should not handle. But my personal feeling is the Supreme Court is entertaining things it shouldn't entertain. I do not think we created the Supreme Court as just another appeal level, which is what is coming out in this country. So you go to the High Court, you go to the Court of Appeal, then you go to the Supreme Court. No. I see the Supreme Court as having a place that is not quite restricted to the appeal structure. And when we look at our constitution, which I think we shall, either we shall abolish the Supreme Court or define for it clearly, because they have failed to define for themselves clearly matters that should and should not come to this before the Supreme Court.
We have to draw a line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when a matter goes to Supreme Court, is it just another appeal, another opinion like the other courts? I doubt. There must be something being pursued. If you look at the American Supreme Court, the structure of the American court system, and you look at the Supreme Court, there is something being pursued. Sometimes a highly ideological issue, highly philosophical issue, something that perhaps goes to the root of who Americans are and what America is. Who are we as Americans? What do we cherish? What are these values that are under threat? Not mtu aliba kuku ya mtu ameshikwa. No. Matters of the Supreme Court, matters of an act of parliament, basically operational in terms of whether a tax should be levied or not. The issues that were raised by Umtata, those are not things for the Supreme Court.
What is the
The Supreme Court should go at the heart of taxation. If a matter of taxation is brought before the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court should engage and make a finding on whether VAT doesn't offend certain principles of our Constitution. Matters of equality, of fairness, of natural justice. How do you levy a tax paid equally by somebody in Mudaiga and somebody in Kibera, paying the same tax at the same rate? Those are the matters the Supreme Court ought to be handling. Not these pedestrian issues that are taken before the court.
What is the importance of these appeals? Because you come from the High Court, you go to the Court of Appeal, you go to the Supreme Court has the final say. One would wonder if it has the final say and it hasn't, ruled according to what we thought, why don't we just stop at the High Court and we don't have all this?
No, you see, the idea of an appeal structure is that there are certain, you can raise matters of law. Okay? That the lower court, the ones where the decision was made, didn't attend to certain aspects of the law well, or applied the wrong reading of the law, or the wrong law. This LR is quite a problem. You get it?
Yes.
Or something as simple as the punishment is not commensurate with the crime. That you can go back to the same court or you can go higher. I'm not quite a lawyer. So there must be very clear issues. And an appeal, by the way, in my view, an appeal ought to be a very simple, straightforward thing. Unless the matter is being raised as the sort of issues I've raised. But if it's just a question of the trial itself,
What is the place then?
there must be things that can be isolated in a week and determined in the same week.
If, you know, we've been talking about public participation for a very long time.
Yes.
How do you interpret how public participation is done by Parliament? I was listening to Charles Kanjama and he was talking about his interpretation of the judgment by the Supreme Court. It's about the public should not be involved in every single aspect of this act. Once they have been involved somehow, it's still okay.
That's what I would expect to hear from the Supreme Court. A major pronouncement on the issue of public participation. When we were setting out to officially launch the constitutional review, I remember the one of Yashpai Gal, CRK, whatever, Constitution of Kenya Review, Blasi, KRM,
Yes.
yeah. Moi said something. The genesis of the word Wanjiko. You know the genesis?
No.
Moi said, what is this you are saying? You get people gathered somewhere to talk about the constitution. And yet Wanjiko has sent the MP to talk for them. How do you go back to Wanjiko? Those are the matters the Supreme Court should be concerned with. And give us some thinking. Give us some thinking. Once you have a representative democracy, you have elected leaders and taken them to various institutions. The executive, the judiciary, the legislature. Why would you go back to the people? How does it happen in other jurisdictions? Because we are not the first. That is the thinking I expect from the Supreme Court.
Why are we scattering around this issue? Because every single time we hear, oh, public participation has
For
happened,
one, myself, you know, for one, myself, I don't believe it's necessary. Me. I believe people must elect leaders knowing you are surrendering to them your powers and your rights to make decisions. That's what I believe, myself. Secondly, assuming I would even allow for public participation, do we have the structures? Does it even make sense? I will tell you this for a fact. If there is an issue of public interest, it's being canvassed at public participation. County Hall, Nairobi. And I've tried it out. Mimi si mtu wa kuongea tu maneno. You go there and you see the people. They are the same people. Anytime there's so-called public participation in County Hall, there will be the same characters. And it's not Kenyans. It's the same people, usually from civil society. Let's make it even worse. When I go to Vihiga, I find the same people have gone to Vihiga. It's not the people of Vihiga who are participating.
This one's in Nairobi.
Yeah. Let's make it even better.
Yeah.
I was a member of CBEF, County Budget Economic Forum. And we were involved in public participation. I never saw anything meaningful. Let me tell you what. When you go to a ward, at the location level or ward level, you want to take the budget for people to participate in doing the budgeting process. They want you to pay them. Let anybody come here and say no. You must pay them. If you don't go money, nobody will come. You go with money. 1,000 each or 500 each. And they're just busybodies. There's nothing. So, one, I do not believe in a representative democracy. You need to go back to the people. I agree with Moi. Wanjiko has sent somebody to talk for them. You can't go back to Wanjiko. Number two, if we must go back, let it be in a way that makes sense. No, where is the structure? Where is any blueprint? How do you conduct public participation? And how do you process the views of Kenyans? So we are so stupid that people meet on Friday. The court rules around 4:30. That's not enough. Let them also take it to constituents level. We are so stupid that within 10 hours or so, you have already organized for public participation at constituents level because the court has ordered in the evening of Friday. So you are ready for them on Friday. You have the structures on the ground ready for them on Saturday, right? That's how stupid we are, right? Unaona sisi tunatumia uji, eh? So on that Saturday, okay, fine, you have conducted. On Tuesday, a few days later, Millie Odhiambo with the statistics in court, in parliament.
Yes.
That's 65%. You think we are so stupid? Processing such information will take time. It will require you tell us how you did it. What formula, what methodology you are using first to gather the views and to process and to present to parliament and talk about percentages of those who support and was it about supporting and not supporting? How do you make sense of the views of the public? Is it a referendum? Is it a yes, no? In many of the places you see that, 99.9% said yes. Is it about yes and no? So, on that score, I don't support public participation because it's nonsense. But what I expect from the Supreme Court is a high-level thinking, engagement. When you read the views of the Supreme Court on public participation, either we'll stop pretending or we go back and create the structures for public participation.
I would want to know about the framework that should be used. We talk about our parliament in all these things, from the finance bills and acts down to Gachagua's impeachment. Is there a framework that can be put in place to safeguard the people? Because we say we have elected these members of parliament and they do things that Kenyans do not want them to do. Is it a question of going back to our constitution and saying how we can deal with this thing? How can we look at it?
The best way is to agree and to accept that in a representative democracy like ours, once you elect people, they will have to do things for you. They will make decisions for you. So number one, how do we ensure we get the best people? I appeared before some commission, 1988, and I told them, until we outlaw Harambe, if we don't outlaw Harambe, we will continue receiving rascals, wash people, thieves and murderers because they have money. And every society requires leaders. And every society has a way of getting those leaders. In some societies, it is the best rainmaker who becomes the ruler. Others, the best medicine man. I think the Maasai, whatever. Others, the best wrestler.
Warriors.
The best warrior. Who are ours? Ours are the thieves because development conscious. Mtu every weekend nyumbani. Harambe, kanisa. So we must outlaw Harambe, any form of Harambe. That way, you, Jad, have a chance to become an MP of Embakasi West. Otherwise, you are eclipsed by the money people have. Stolen money, wash money. But then people are voting for people because of the way they donate. And we outlaw that. So we are now going into getting better leaders. Secondly, we must have institutions of check, of accountability. We must have structures in place, of serious structures to ensure parliament doesn't go rogue. You get it? Institutions of accountability. And this is how also civil society comes into play. And thirdly, we must not have all MPs elected at the same time. Let's have midterm elections. Rotational. We elect some of them now. After 2 years, we are electing others. People can see what is going on and they know any time. People are watching and people are at work. And finally, we must make it easy for us to recall our MPs.
Then I would want to know, now that someone like Okiya Omtata says, through this determination of Finance Bill 2023 being regarded as constitutional, Kenyans do not trust our courts, including the Supreme Court. He says we are looking at a time where, because Kenyans don't want this bill, we'll go back to the streets as we did with the Finance Act of 2024. How can Supreme Court now build its trust? Is it through straightforward determination, or how should they balance the political wave vis-a-vis what people really want?
What the Supreme Court ought to have done is to strike a balance between pragmatism and philosophy. In other words, we have to be aware, we have to accept and be pragmatic that government ought to move, and it requires the blessing of Parliament by way of a Finance Act. That is one stream, and they can deal with it as such. So that either through various changes or amendment on the act, whatever it is, but government proceeds with its business. Or if they weigh there's nothing government will lose, they just say they confirm what was at the Court of Appeal. But now, to address the future, in terms of these matters, you look at the philosophy behind all these things, the deeper thinking, and they provide a guidance for future. Some pronouncement from the court that will guide this country for the next 100 years. That other jurisdictions will come and look at when they are in similar situations and say, the Supreme Court of Kenya, because I feel very offended when we are quoting cases of 18th Jew, what from England, 1910, from...
Yeah.
When shall we be quoted?
Let's wrap it up at that particular place. Thanks for tuning into that conversation. When shall we be quoted? We need to come up with our own determination for our sake as a country. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a lovely rest of your day.